Well, good morning. It's Buddha's in your landfill or Zen Live. It's really amazing these my mornings because I come downstairs to get my coffee, and I got nothing, and all I have to work with this morning to find a Buddha in the landfill is the movie we saw last night, which was Hacksaw Ridge. And I know you probably haven't seen it yet unless you saw it at a theater because it just came out on DVD. And but it's not a there's no there's no mystery here, so I can talk about it. And as you know, I talk about and I see movies as metaphors. And so when there's a movie, to me it's like a Zen cone. It's like a ball of hot iron that you can't swallow or cough up. So it just, and it wants to be solved. It wants to be resolved. The metaphor or the paradox wants to be resolved. And so that's what it. So it goes like that, and it's kind of like the poem I think I talked about. Maybe I don't know if we talked about here or not, but there's a poem that expresses this. Of this yearning for oneness, and it goes like this. Just a line. It goes like a bodiless child full of life in the gloom. Think about that. A bodiless child full of life in the gloom, crying with frog voice. You hear the frog crying with frog voice. What shall I be? What shall I be? So the movie, for me, and we have these situations in our life where you have this puzzle, this paradox, this question, this doubt, this irritant, this nagging, this yearning, this frog voice. What shall I be? All right, well, the frog voice wants to be unity. It wants to be one. The commandment of life, of the whole cosmos and religions, let there be one. Let there be one. All right? But this is always a dynamic question because life is always changing, so we're always having to discover a new one. And this takes us for, we'll just go back yesterday and pick up here before we move into our new discovery, which is, what does Hacksaw Ridge mean? Movies have a title for a purpose, and they're always metaphorical, good titles. So anyway, we were talking yesterday about the conflict, the irresolvable conflict of two opposite frames of reference, two opposite laws, two opposite commandments. The commandment of absolute, there is one, that's the absolute, and the relevant. Well, there's many. There are many ones. You see the conflict here? And this goes into a conflict between religion and secularism, Republicans versus Democrats, marriages, where you have a conflict between how can you be a we and a me? How can you be absolutely we? And how can you be me? Both at the same time. You can't put them together. So the problem, you see, with this paradox of the relevant and the absolute is that the relevant refers to what you see now, which is always fragmented, always broken up into pieces. That's the way we see the world. And the absolute is the ideal of one. So we think this. So we have to think by force we have to make all these parts fit into one, but they never fit. You can't force all the pieces to be one. They're going to remain. The living moment is always going to be relevant. It's always going to be pieces. Yet there is the one. So where is it? You see, how do you get to it? Okay. Well, this is the Hacksaw Ridge. The hacksaw is a hacksaw. If you hacksaw something, it's kind of like rough. Isn't it? Hacksaw, you're hacking it. Hacksaw, it's not a smooth cut. It's a ridge, and it's going to cut you. you got to get over it. Okay, so yesterday we were laying the groundwork for today when we were talking about the living law and the dead law, or the relevant and the absolute, and the commandment, let there be one. So you see the situation here. The two frames of reference here is that there is many, but there must be one. And the commandment is, let there be one, which means you have to make the many and the one, but you can't do it. It's like I'm holding this together and this together, and that's the many, or that's two. But the commandment is, let there be one. There must be one. So you can't make this become this so you have one, unless you use a metaphor. Unless you make a creative leap and invent or create a one that holds them both together, using this just as a poor example. So let's look at the movie, and I'll give you just a brief preview of it, so we'll get a little idea. It's about World War II, and it's about a battle, I think it was on Okinawa, or right prior to that. And this fellow lived in the country. He had a brother, and he had an alcoholic father, and he almost killed his father, and he vowed never to touch a gun. He almost killed his father with a gun, and he vowed never to touch a gun, to not kill. That was his vow. So then the war starts, and everybody's joining. So he wants to serve. How I have to serve. That's my duty, to be one, to be part of my, see, let there be one. The commandment was, be part of your country, be one with it. So he joins a rifle company. Paradox. How can he join a rifle company if he won't touch a gun? So that's the dilemma. He goes through boot camp, and the soldiers almost kill him. They almost put him in jail. They almost send him to prison. They beat him up. He can't become one of the tribe. You see, now remember, boot camp is itself a metaphor. A boot camp removes your belief in you as a separate individual. The boot camp strips away your individuality, shaves your head, strips away your beads, strips away everything that defines you as part of the many, you see. Everything that defines you as unique you, strips it away and makes you part of a tribe. And so that's an atonement. You become one with the tribe. And of course, in the military, your company is your tribe. You become one of a tribe, you see. But this poor guy couldn't become one of the tribe because he wouldn't touch a gun. How can you be in a rifle company and not carry a gun? That was the lie. It was not logical. It was not, had made no sense. But he made a vow. I will not carry a gun. But he also had the vow to serve. So how could he not carry a gun and yet serve? So this creates the conflict in the movie. So they go to the island, and they have to take this ridge, Hacksaw Ridge, and the Japs up there are all embedded in bunkers and everything. And so the companies keep going, climb up this rope, and they go over the ridge, and they get slaughtered. And they come back down, and they're all wiped out. And there were a bunch of them left up there. So our hero here, during the night, what was left of the company, they all came back down, and he stayed up there and through the mud and the fire and the Japs running around, pulled and saved 56 soldiers. And he lowered them down by himself on a rope. So he was rescuing. And so down here, the company, where are all these coming from? Where are all these? Well, there's some guy up there bringing them back. So he was saving the company one by one at night. And finally, when they were getting ready to go up there again, the company would not go unless he went with them. So he had become a sacred soldier. In other words, they wouldn't go up there again, Das, that was his name, unless Das went with them. So there was this was the in a metaphorical sense, you see, in the hero journey, this was the journey of the hero for atonement. The hero's journey is for, in most senses, is for atonement, is to solve the paradox of being one and the many at the same time. So he was able to, so I got curious, what was it that enabled him to achieve this atonement of being one when he was not one? How did he achieve how did he resolve the double bind? Now here's the double bind in this movie, is that there are 2 commandments. And he was religious, so it was referred to the Bible, carried the Bible with him. So one was, thou shalt not kill. But then the commandment of the rifle company was, thou shalt kill. And so the way so he put this question, he said, well, that's an absolute commandment, do not kill. But the commandment of the rifle company and during war was, thou shalt kill. How can these are 2 contradictory commandments. How do you resolve it? So, you see the problem here is that if he obeyed either one of them, he disobeyed the other commandment. If he didn't join, he would disobey the commandment to join and serve. If he served and he killed, he would disobey the commandment of don't kill. This was his dilemma. So this is a metaphor for all of our dilemmas, you see. I mean, these are not just about that. It's not just about entertainment. It's not just about a movie. It doesn't bother me. No, we're going through this all the time. Every day we're caught up in this kind of a double bind, and we usually solve it by choosing one side or the other, because you can't put them both together unless you have a vow. So this is kind of like now the metaphorical meaning of the vow. And his vow, well, I will not touch a gun, but I'm going to be in the rifle company. So this vow contains the opposites. This vow is a metaphor. That it's a living metaphor. You see, not a dead metaphor, not something that refers somebody else did or some story. It was a living metaphor. The vow is a living metaphor in which he himself contained the opposites in himself, you see. And that creates tremendous energy because he achieved, and this is a true story, he achieved a superhuman feat. He made a movie about it. During the night, by himself, he rescued, dragged 56 men through a hellhole with Japs running around, and he pulled them, and then he lowered them down by a rope, hanging like food. They're rescued, they're just hanging and going down, his hands bleeding, and then he crawls back. And his vow was always, just one more. And he would go back. And when he told his story, that was what he would lie there, and then just one more. And he'd go back and get one more. Just one more. It's like an alcoholic. Just one more, just today. Just today. You see. But what kept him going was the creative energy of his vow. A vow that we're looking at here generates creative energy because it holds the opposites together like in a magnet. Oh, you see? When you hold 2 opposite forces together in a container, you have a battery. And you got energy, you can use it. So this generated creative energy to do the superhuman feat, you see. Isn't that interesting? So the vow, because it holds the opposite commandments together, not as a belief. Now we gotta look at this. A vow that we're talking about here is kind of like the word. It's kind of like Om. It's kind of like the Big Bang. It's kind of like the living word. It's kind of like I am the word. I am this vow. You see, this is not a belief. A belief, a vow, is not logical. There's no reason for it, but it's what you do. It's not logical because it was logical if you're in a rifle company to carry a rifle. It's not logical to be in a rifle company and not carry a rifle. There was one incident in which he was pulling this one of his, and he knew, and he knew all these people because they were all in a company, So he's pulling his friend, he's getting ready to pull him out, and he needs to make a little stretcher. So he grabs the rifle, and the soldier says, "Oh, you're going to shoot the Jap," And no, he uses the rifle to make a stretcher. So it wasn't a rifle; it was a stretcher. So he didn't touch a gun; he touched a stretcher. But I thought that was interesting. The metaphor, which is a living metaphor, a living vow, contains the opposites. And a vow like this is not logical, right? I mean, it's not logical to be in a rifle company and not carry a rifle. There's no reason for it because he got beat up. He almost got put in prison for it. So there's no fruit. He wasn't getting anything out of it. He wasn't getting to say, "Oh, I'm so great," or God wasn't giving him anything. He didn't get to wear Jesus around his neck. There was no church to pat him on the back. There was no fruit. There was no reason to do it. And yet, this is what I do. See, he doesn't know why he isn't doing it. I mean, it's not something he believes in. It's something, the vow is not something you believe in. It's something you do. It's what you are. And that's the difference between a living word and a belief. You don't believe you are. You don't believe you're listening to me right now. You are listening to me. You know you're listening to me. That's who you are. You don't believe it. I don't believe I'm talking to you. I know I'm talking to you. Unless the Facebook disconnects. You see what I mean? So belief is different from knowing. Belief in something, but I know that I'm talking to you, so I'm not believing in something. I know it. I know I'm here. I don't believe I'm here. You see, so we get confused about vows and belief and this kind of, and the vow. So basically the vow, this illogical, for no reason, no fruit vow, achieves atonement because it unites the contradictory commandments. Marriage is the best place to practice this because marriage is full of contradictory commandments. You're sitting there watching TV or reading a book and your spouse says, would you come here and do this for me, something yada yada. 2 commandments. She gives you a commandment. Your commandment is, I'm reading this. I want to watch this. Okay. Or God damn it, why don't you get somebody, something, that would be, I'd choose one or the other. Either you say, oh, okay, I'll go do it, but I shouldn't have done it. I wanted to stay there, Resentment. You didn't choose it. But then if you choose it, then I wish I was back there reading my book. So when you're in a contradiction of 2 commandments, if you choose one or the other one is nagging you. You can't be clean. You can't, when there's one, there's no leftovers. The plate's clean. There's no leftovers. You cleaned it up. It's one. No regrets, no guilt. It's one. You know. When there's one, you know. When there's 2, you believe. So belief is a way we get out of trying to obey both commandments that cannot be obeyed at once. The paradox, the ambiguity of consciousness, the ambiguity of our life is that the commandment of life is let there be one, and yet there is always 2. So we're always in a double bind of trying to figure out which one to do, and there has to be one. So this pushes us to a creative leap of Hacksaw Ridge, where we have to make a vow to be both. And that's always going to be creative. That's always going to be, it's never existed before. So this never existed before, to have a rifleman in a rifle company that wouldn't touch a gun. That was something creative. That was something new. All this transgender thing, LTGB and all that, is an attempt to become one when you're two. Am I male or female? I look male, I feel female. I look female, I feel male. How can I be one? I have to be one. I can't be two. I have to be one. So all of the struggle we're going on, you see, is all about the struggle to resolve this fundamental contradiction between the absolute and the relative. The absolute is, let there be one. There is one. There must be one. There has to be one. The relevant is, well, there's two, you see. How can the two, how can the many become one, and the one still be many? That's impossible, yet it has to be. So this is the crucible. This is the curse and blessing of humanity, that we, each of us, has to solve this puzzle, this Gordian knot, this Zen cone. How do we solve? We have to solve it. If we don't, we're going to be nagged and dragged for our whole life in a constant, and this is called karma, constantly, karmically in a Groundhog Day. Always trying to solve the puzzle, but never doing it and having to repeat it over and over and over again in different ways, different forms, but it's the same roller coaster. And it'll always be presenting us again until we make the leap on the last shadow in Avatar. We make the leap, the mad leap, and create ourselves into the one that has no second. That's what, even in Genesis, Yahweh said, let there be one without a second. So he said, I'm the one without a second. Well, it's not. If you say that one without a second is something external, you're missing the mark. It's you. You see. Okay, so and the last thing here is the vow is like Sheldon's spot. In other words, in ancient civilizations, the spot or the vow was located in a place or a ritual, a home tree, a temple, something external. But the vow is portable. It's a portable spot. Because if your vow, is located in a physical place, then you're dependent upon that physical place being permanent. And nothing is permanent. The home tree can be bulldozed down. You're always under attack. In other words, dependency upon an external vow will not cut the rope. You have to make the vow internal. So wherever you go, you've got it. Wherever you go, you're still in your spot. You're still one. You're still solving the problem, the puzzle. So the vow has to become portable. Sheldon's spot in the Big Bang is a good metaphor for his spot being at a particular location in space. So he was not comfortable, he was not at home unless he was in his physical spot. I mean, we do that all the time. We go to work and we're fragmented and we're caught up in the contradictions, and we get home and we go, I'm in my spot. I'm home. You see. But the house burns down. Now what do you do? You see, so the challenge is to make the spot portable, but not even dependent upon my individuality, my me. If I go to boot camp, they're going to strip my spot away from me, my individuality, shave my head, turn me into a soldier, you see, into a tribe. They're going to take away my spot and make the tribe the spot. So now I'm dependent upon the tribe for my atonement, for my wholeness, you see. Now I'll give my life for my tribe, you see, because I have no individual life without the tribe. That's an interesting thought. Maybe we'll pick that up. So we've looked over the idea of a vow as being the creative word that solves the dilemma of consciousness, in which the eternal commandment that must be obeyed, let there be one, is always in a state of contradiction or double bind, where there are two contradictory commandments, each wanting to be the one, but it can't be because the other half is still crying. So that frog voice in the gloom, what shall I be, is always crying to be one. And that requires a leap, a creative leap that you've never done before. It requires that we invent ourselves as whole, and that's always going to be in the form of a metaphor that holds the contradiction, contains the contradiction, and that containment of opposites generates creative energy. It generates creative energy to clean the house, write a book, create a business, create a family. That takes energy. Where's it going to come from, you see? And we can discover it in little ways and big ways. Just this morning, you see. So I came down. I had had no idea what I was going to talk about and everything. But then I picked up Hacksaw Ridge, and so then that began to cry like a frog voice. What does it mean? And so I began to work with it. I began to work with it with my hand. I got into my body, and I was writing on here. I've erased some stuff, and I was drawing some stuff here. So my body was telling me where to go as it wrote. And suddenly I began to see the metaphorical and the depth of what this movie was trying to say as a formula, not as a story, but as a formula that was me. And I got energy, so that I began to feel the energy of this thing coming together. And so that energy makes this talk. You see? So let's leave it there, and we'll see where we go tomorrow, and come back this evening at Martini time. And what I think we're doing here, and I hope you're following, is that we take things that happen in everyday life, my everyday life, that's all I got to work with, my everyday life, what I see on the news, what you see on the news, a movie, or something I read or something, and we use that as the food for a inquiry into this eternal question of the relevant versus the absolute and the contradictory commandments, because they take forms. It takes form in our life, as our life, for us to resolve creatively throughout our life. Our whole life is this. A dynamic, creative life is constantly discovering the one, the atonement. It's constantly fragmenting, constantly rediscovering the one. But we, you and I, are the creators of this. We have to create the one in our life, you see. And that achieves the atonement and the resolution of the contradiction between the two commandments that must be obeyed. So let's pick this up tomorrow. Thank you for joining me. And may you find a Buddha in your landfill today.